Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video, we are looking at Enphase Energy. This was a stock analysis request from one of the followers, and I wanted to let you know that anyone can make these requests and I'll most likely cover them, especially if there is an actionable trade setup to follow. And in the case of this chart, we have an interesting structure because I could be looking for an initial 5-wave pattern to the upside to be complete and track a larger initial wave 1. Now, be aware, this is not necessarily the most common 5th wave we would expect to see in such a pattern. I would have actually liked to see this as a wave 1, part of the larger 5th wave to be unfolding, but clearly we didn't manage to hold internal support to track extensions to even higher prices. So, be aware, this is not going to be the safest or the most reliable 1-2 setup we could be tracking. With that in mind, however, I am still looking for a potential correction in a wave 2 in a 3-wave pattern into an area of support. In such an expectation, I would be watching the levels between the $31.3 all the way down to the $2.5 level at the 78.6% retracement. We have already formed a 3-wave pattern into the area of support where from the first time we have actually touched it, we have formed an interesting reaction to the upside. We did extend a bit lower afterwards, but then an even stronger reaction has appeared. This allows me to look for a potential breakout that could form within this area, although, in my opinion, this structure does still lack a low, another leg down, in an interpretation of an ABC pattern to unfold within this area. In such an expectation, I would be tracking within this structure a 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, and a 5th. In this expectation, I would like once again to see another low into the area of support before looking for a more substantial bottom based on the idea of a full pattern within this wave C, within this wave 2. In such an expectation, we would need to watch out for the area of resistance all the way up to the 50% retracement. I am tracking an impulse within this wave C, and already a break above the $58 level would be a strong signal that this wave to the downside would have formed a bottom sooner rather than later, and I wouldn't consider this impossible. Keep in mind, within a wave 2, we don't even need to build an ABC pattern to actually have a full count. A wave 2 could also unfold as a more complex correction, something like a WXY structure, in which case we may be able to consider a bottom in place sooner rather than later. In either case, I cannot be looking with confidence for a more direct breakout without getting through the levels of resistance we have available within the interpretation that would expect another low. Additionally, I would like to see an initial 5-wave move to the upside to have even more confidence that a bottom would be in place, and based on the internal structure within this area, I have strong doubts about managing to actually build one without also breaking the levels of resistance we have for our wave 4. Now, I want you to be aware. Firstly, this structure, this count we are tracking from the all-time low, does not need to be an impulse. Could work out as a diagonal structure. Now, I would consider probably somewhere around the same likelihood of a follow-up to the upside afterwards, but it could also work out as an ABC pattern internally, where we wouldn't have the high probabilities we would normally expect of a 1-2 setup, where the wave 1 does actually have the entire 5-wave pattern. So this chart is not going to have the strong fundamental backing of the Elliott wave structure, but based on the pattern, based on the overall market demands for energy, I could be considering a position anyway, also because we did complete the follow-up expectations. We already have the 3-wave pattern, we have already gotten into the area of support, and we have formed quite substantial reactions even from the first level. Now, if we were to extend to lower prices in a 5th wave within this area, I could very well see a bottom form along the structural support that we have here between the, let's say, $23.7 down to the $21.7. Something to keep in mind, although it's not always that we do create the reversal at these points. However, we have additional structural support even lower, and just below that we have the 50% retracement line waiting to aid us in creating the reversal to the upside. Additionally, even if we break the 50% retracement, we could still be looking at an extension within this wave too. That does not mean automatically that we have the bottom in place and that the third wave is going to unfold, because this could extend into something like a larger A, B, C pattern and take us still to even lower prices. So creating the initial internal 5-wave move to the upside would still be ideal to track a more reliable uptrend. So when you consider accumulating on such a chart, you need to keep all of this in mind. You want to strategically position yourself, not just drop the bag when you have a full count, take a hopium pill and pray for the next move to the upside. We have plenty of examples where we have gotten extensions. Now, this fifth wave was not one of them, but that doesn't mean this one could not form an extension to lower prices. You need to be aware that as long as we hold the 78.6% retracement, we cannot dismiss the probabilities for continuation to higher prices. They remain intact as long as we hold on this chart the $2.5 level. We are talking about a substantial drop from the current levels, over 90%, and we would still be looking with the same probabilities for extensions to higher prices. Buying this stock on spot, it's going to provide more risk than buying some other stocks on leverage, so position size is critical here. Be extremely careful. Now, with all that said, I want to go in the internal structure, and here I'm considering a potential 5-wave move to the upside, of course, but currently we have no more than a 3-wave pattern in place. We could be looking already at a top within this wave 4, and a 5th wave to already be looking to take us to lower prices. So with that in mind, I am looking for a potential breakout in an idea of, a double 1-2-1-2 setup, where now we could be looking at an internal wave tree to form within this structure. So here, let's track this within, let's say, a blue interpretation. For this to be a reliable wave tree, to be able to track a follow-up in a wave 4, I would need it to reach the 138.2% extension of the wave 1. So far, so good. We did get very, very close, and if this is to build an entire impulse in this wave 3, I would need to see another high anyway. I would need to see at the very least a 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, and the 5th before I would be able to consider this count actually full, before I would be able to look for a wave 4 correction and a 5th wave. So, internally, within this structure, we will be looking for a 5-wave move to the upside, where we could see even more than one additional high. Keep in mind, in this structure, we might be able to consider this a distortion, but we might as well have a double 1-2-1-2 setup, in which case we would expect a couple of additional 4-5 patterns before this structure is actually complete. Now, in this structure, however, I would be looking for the 50% retracement to hold. If we form a break below the 50% retracement, I would not be able to track this pattern with any confidence, really. I would be prepared for a very direct breakdown. I would be considering a more substantial top to already be in place within this wave 4. We already have a couple of signs that this structure would not be able to form a larger uptrend. Firstly, we do not have a complete 5-wave move within this area. Secondly, we haven't reached the ideal target within the wave 3. Both signs, strong signs that this structure is going to fail. Now, I want to also change the degree for this. And in this wave 4, once again, we would be looking for a 3-wave correction. So far, so good, because in this structure, we already have this in place. If I'm being honest, even within this internal wave 3, I might be looking for an additional high, but I will let that slide. I will let that go, honestly, because it is within a 15-minute time frame. It might actually be just built in with what really happened here during the earnings report and the guidance report that was provided, Now, in this wave to the downside, in this wave 4, I actually see a full count. Even if I go here on the 5-minute time frame, I have a complete wave C. I don't need any additional lows, and we could have technically already bottomed. So we are looking for the uptrend to have started. not providing any solid opinions on this, as again, the 5-minute time frame, nothing substantial enough that couldn't be distorted by the extremely small and fragile structures that are within this area. With the data that we see, it looks promising, it looks like a bottom could be in place, and it looks like the 5th wave might be on its way. Now, in terms of resistance, I could be looking here for a potential internal 1-2 setup to take us to even lower prices. In that case, I would be watching the levels between the $49.3 all the way up to the $51.6. A break above the 78.6% retracement would be a good signal that a more substantial bottom is in place and that we could prepare for the 5th wave to take us to higher prices. At this point, on the 4-hour time frame, we can even see that we are consolidating here. Actually, even on the daily time frame, we could zoom out a little better and notice that we are consolidating here using the 38.2% retracement that was resistance as support. Yeah, we have pushed into this level and we have had a wick below it, and now we are testing it. We are attempting to create this reversal to the upside from this area, which is a positive sign, yeah? It is always positive to break above the resistance levels and test them as support before proceeding to even higher prices. Now, again, as a recap, I want you to keep in mind, this is an extremely fragile structure still. We only have a 3-wave pattern to the upside. I wouldn't think too much of the internal structure from the perspective of a wave 4 correction. For all intents and purposes, this could be considered complete. We could be looking for the next wave to the downside in a 5th wave, back into the larger area of support, and we are still looking for this as long as we hold below the $58 level. Remember, if we actually build here the 5th wave internally in the blue scenario, yeah, this internal structure that would complete a slightly larger wave 3, I would not expect this to break the area of resistance. I would expect this, however, to complete our ABC structure. So technically, even within the ABC structure in the wave 4, I would prefer to get an additional high, but really nothing more than that. And for now, I'm cautiously optimistic, at least from a longer time frame perspective, and I'm waiting for the evidence. I'm waiting for the signals of the pattern that is going to unfold. Again, below the $43.6 level would be a strong signal to me that this structure is much more likely descending into the 5th wave to lower prices. And based on proportions, I wouldn't necessarily even look for an extension in this wave 4 in something like an ABC structure to unfold. Even a WXY doesn't really matter, it's a wave 4. But for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.